Thank you for coming. I just echo some of my colleagues. I appreciate your service and what you're trying to do, but to dismiss what we're trying to get to the bottom of as political banter, that's not what we're doing. I mean, when we see reports where, and many of these releases were before you were even in ICE, but when we see 124 people who had been in custody and were here illegally and then end up getting charged with murder, when you see things like Kate Steinle, who was just going about her business, and then she got killed by somebody who had no business being in the country, that's something that concerns people here in the Congress, but the American people. And our government is involved in a lot of different things. The type of health insurance you have to buy, how much water a toilet can flush, all these different things. And yet a core function of the government is to ensure the safety and security of the American people. And it's frustrating when government is involved in all these other things and then fails at its core function. So we are absolutely serious about it, and it's not political theater. It's just a frustration to have families who have to go through this. Now, you said something earlier in your testimony. You said that you need a removal order to deport someone. Without that, they can't be deported. Is that correct?
A final order of removal.
Well, because aren't there administrative removals?
Yes.
There's stipulated removals?
Yes, absolutely.
And then there are expedited removals, correct?
Yes. A person can volunteer to go back. A person who's caught at the border at ports of entry, we can move through that process a little quicker.
So there are ways to do it. And I think that part of the frustration is we've gone through the numbers a lot about the numbers that were discretionary versus what ICE would say because of the Supreme Court's precedent in the Zavidas case. But even there, that's a 6-month window. So you have somebody in custody, let's say, who got out of prison after committing a sexual assault against a child, and that individual is being held. You do have time to be able to repatriate that individual back to their own country. And what we're a lot of times told by DHS is, well, they don't get the paperwork to us in time, they don't do all this, and so then the 6 months elapse, and then this individual is released when they are clearly a danger to society. So you guys can work through this quicker. In some of these other countries, and I get that they're not always going to comply immediately, but we have not used any of our leverage against them. We have not done. The State Department has not suspended a single visa for any of these countries at all. We have the ability to do that. They depend on us more than we depend on their visas. And so what can you do to be able to move through the process quicker so that people who are clearly dangerous, have been convicted, don't have any legal right to be here, can be repatriated before that time limit expires?
I'm all about procedures and institutionalizing a process to make sure it works. My interest is not in second-guessing all our officers, is in setting up a process and procedure that will get to that.
So what do you need to do, though, to do that? What do we need to do? Because there's Mr. Gowdy, he has a legislative fix for this Zavidas issue. Is that something that you're familiar with?
I am not.
Would that be something you'd be open to learning about?
Absolutely, sir, and working with you on that total subject.
Because here's I guess the issue, and you've raised the statute books and you've said, look, they're not mandated to be deported, even if they've been convicted of some of these bad crimes, because Congress has made these decisions. And while some of those crimes, it's true, may not be mandatory, that doesn't mean that the law does not provide you at least authority to detain them. In other words, just because it's not in that book does not mean that they have to be released. It does not follow that that's the case. Now, do you agree with that?
That is true.
Okay. And then in terms of the immigration courts, you've mentioned those. Just so that the American people understand, the immigration courts, they're not Article III courts, correct?
They're not.
They're Article II. They're Article II courts, correct?
Yes.
So they're within the executive branch.
Within the Department of Justice.
And so if an immigration judge orders somebody's got to be released, and you feel that that's very strongly that that's bad for the safety of our country, you can then go to the higher up in the executive branch and try to change that, correct?
Bureau of Immigration Appeals, and then circuit courts after that.
Okay, great. Do you know when we first did this issue, in fiscal 13, there had been 36,000 individuals who had been released, who had been convicted of crimes but were here illegally. And as of last year, there had been 1,000 of those people who had already been convicted of new crimes. Do you guys have the figures on anybody from FY13 through FY15 who has been in ICE custody, previously been convicted of a crime and then got released and then got convicted of a new crime?
I don't know about 15 precisely. We may have 15, but yes, we do have those numbers generally.
Okay, well, if you can provide those for us, I think that would be important. Then also back from 13, because I know that's obviously probably changed since the last time we have it. My time is up, and the chair now recognizes Mr. Heiss for 5 minutes.